just want a quick introduction. I don't know if there are new persons who have joined us, but just to indicate if you were here for the last session. All right, may I start with you, Camille Bright? Remind me of your organization as well, please.
Hi, good afternoon. Are you hearing me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Good. Wonderful, because this thing doesn't work sometimes. Yes,
The
I was
work
here for
load
the
today,
last
though.
session. I was here
Yes.
for the last session. I'm with Ajas, Station
Oh,
Administrator.
Ajas.
Yes.
Okay, Camille.
All right.
All right, Dwight Sims.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Named
Hi.
Dwight Sims, company Lidford Mining, and I was present at the last session.
All right, roll call. Okay, Dwight. Jackie Millington of Lidford Mining, and she was here the last class.
Thanks for the introduction. I won't give any trouble in this class. The teacher will forget me.
Listen, let me tell you, that is not possible.
I
right.
realize that. I will behave.
Rowena from Lidford Mining was present at the last class. Correct, Rowena?
Good afternoon, everyone. That's correct, Mrs. Corodas.
Okay. Tamika, you were here at the last class, right?
Yes, I was. Good day, everyone.
Right. All right. Some of the new people then. All right. So it's a family that's continuing a dialogue then. All right. So we're gonna start, and my apology for us starting a little bit late. We value your time, but we just wanted to make sure that everybody was on board. All right. So how are you feeling today? I hope that, given that we're doing an afternoon session, does not get in the way of the kind of robust discussion that we're used to, because we want to make sure that we're not just participating for participating sake, but that what we discuss in our sessions are these areas that will give us a chance to make some meaningful contribution to the respective companies that we work. All right, so that is my hope, and I hope that you are also of the same perspective. So let's get, okay, Lisa has joined us. I'm going to text you. I'm in a meeting. I apologize. Yes, my apology. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, Julian. Hi, everybody.
How did you do?
I'm cool.
All right. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today, first, we're going to do a recap of the session one, because I know that some persons may not remember everything, but some persons, with all the things that you've been doing, you would really benefit from the recap. So we're going to just run through quickly. Then we're going to be looking at the corporate goals and achieving those through effective headhunting, as well as some of the recruitment tips for high-performing teams, what you need to be focused on, and also the benefits of recruitment planning. And more importantly, what I want to spend a lot of time today on is a simulation exercise. Just taking an example and just working through it to see some of the things that come up, right? So here we go. All right, so we discussed last time recruitment terminology, and we looked at what does staffing mean, which is the screening and selection of persons to fill vacant positions. And we looked at recruiting, which is the active seeking and finding. That's the staffing is, okay, this is the big plan for the company. We're going to be needing these persons. We need to do a staffing exercise. But the recruitment is actually getting down into it and getting your hands dirty, doing the seeking, finding, screening, hiring. That is the recruiting. But the staffing has to do with the pre-work, the pre-prep work, having the organizational structure in place, having the job descriptions in place, all of those kind of things, right? All right, so we talked about the job screening exercise, and I made a point that a lot of companies screen after they have made an offer. And that's why you find yourself in problems. I think that sometimes I understand it's not realistic to say, oh, because screening takes a while sometimes, you know, especially security vetting. So you may want to have the person on, but you have to categorically state and give a temporary contract then, or do something that makes it very clear that this is not an offer of employment that is irrevocable, but that the complete offer is contingent on the successful results of a screening exercise, so that people don't have this false sense of security and then say, oh, I've been unjustifiably terminated, I've been working well, and all of a sudden they have terminated me, right? It is very problematic when you do it this way, though, because a lot of companies get back adverse security results. What do? You're going to say, oh, we have found that you are so and so, you would have been charged twice for embezzlement. I mean, you may not want to get into that. I mean, the fact that the person has been charged is enough for you to say, boy, I don't want to take this risk. But if you're going to be declared to the person, oh, this is the problem we're having, sometimes that may cause more problems than solutions. So I think the cleanest, clearest thing to do is get your applications having advertised, you do your shortlisting, you do your interviews, give yourself enough lead time to do the screening, right? Even the basic screening, please, the most critical screening. And then you give them an offer letter, right? Because it's been so problematic for many companies who do otherwise. All right, so any comments on that? Any comments, Rowena?
No, miss.
Okay. All right. So you agree with what I said?
Yes.
Partially?
Yes.
All of it or partially?
All of it.
Why?
Well, you were stating that the job screening process, it has to be done or it should be done before you select your most suitable candidate. So in most cases, sometimes how most persons portray themselves is not always who they seem to be. So
Yeah.
job screening is always best for us to do hiring a person.
And another thing you have to look out for, the persons who sometimes have a questionable character, they come with some very strong references as well, For instance, I had a situation, I don't know if I said it the last time, but there's a young man that he normally calls me and says, Miss Corodas, I'm job hunting, I'm just asking your permission if I could use you as a reference. Okay, fine. But he gets his good jobs. Then he doesn't have them anymore. And I had a chance to speak to the HR at one of the companies that he worked. And then I realized he really doesn't know his area very well. But because they see a reference that is known to them, they say, okay, let's go with this one that has Corodas as a reference. But what I said to the person is that nobody has ever called me to say such and such person has put you as a reference. This is the kind of job that they are looking at getting, right? So that I could give an honest opinion, right? So we have to be careful at times, because if you don't do this screening, a lot of times we see references written on the CVs, but we never contact the people. And if you had contacted the person, they would have said, you know, so and so, right? So yeah, Rowena, we're in agreement. Right, so we
Okay.
talked about, yes, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with what you're saying.
Oh, okay. We talked about last session that there is a Recruiting of Workers Act. Many persons didn't know. And we mentioned that it prohibits child labor, and this is what allows medical examination for fitness to determine workers' suitability for work. And we also said that the initial expenses of a worker to get to the recruitment area or to just arrive at work on the first day of their engagement should be borne by the employer. That is what it says, right? And if a worker becomes ill medically and is deemed unfit and they need to be sent home, normally the employer should assist if possible. Yes, Lisa?
Question, Jillian.
Yes.
So just suppose you cannot, your best effort, you cannot contact the references. What is that a red flag, or do you? Oh,
I would ask the person for an updated number for the references, because you know what? If you have been calling those numbers and you're not getting through, in my mind, that's a red flag. Probably that person, that reference doesn't no longer uses that number, or they have not been in touch with that person. So the reference really doesn't know much about the person anymore.
and is it merely a telephone call, or do you want a more fulsome?
I think you can do a telephone call. I think you can do a telephone call, but just to document, to say that you've spoken with them, and you know, just to say that they've concurred with it, or if you want a reference letter from the person as well. But sometimes I find
Sometimes they don't want to. They don't want to go to the trouble.
yeah, and I find for instance, somebody she works with an organization that I worked at a couple of years ago, so I would have been her senior director. She migrated, and she was in the United States looking for employment. And I kept seeing this thing come to my email about her asking me for a reference. But I ignored it because, you know, you think it's this spam or something. Until a person phoned me from the company that was trying to recruit her. And I said, my sincere apology. Please, it is not that I wouldn't want to give her a reference, but initially when I saw this, I really construed it to be just spam, right? Probably she's been trying to reach me, but my numbers, I may not have answered or whatever it is. So there are times when, Lisa, the person may really want to give a good reference, but them not have the time to sit down and write a letter about the person that they want to recommend. So a telephone call is probably easier sometimes. Yeah? Lisa?
Okay. Thanks, Julian.
Okay. All right. Camille, then Dwight.
All right. I know nothing is foolproof, but sometimes we would stipulate the category of persons that we're to get references from, and they will write a name and a contact number. How do we safeguard against them falsifying information? It could be their cousin, it could be their brother. And we call, and of course, they're going to give glowing recommendations.
So true.
If it's nothing in writing where we can see that, okay, this is a JP with their stamp, the seal, everything, and they just put a reference with a name and a number, and we say, okay, it must be a JP, it must be a manager, whatever. The person can say anything on the end of the line. How do we
That
safeguard?
is so true. But what you can do, some organizations do it this way, that you will say you need a reference from a past employer. And in that case, the past employer will be required to give a reference letter on the letterhead, or you would be calling the entity for that person. So you would have been using official telephone communication, telephone lines to communicate. So that's one way. In respect of the bona fideness, because everybody have cell phone numbers and they just write somebody's name, could be the right name
Exactly.
or wrong
Yes.
phone number. I would think that you would ask for name and email address, and probably using the email address might be safer than a telephone number way of finding the person, unless the person has their email address as Kingston lady, some crazy email addresses that really doesn't attach to the person. But if the person has, in my case, gcarodas1@gmail, you can see that it has something to do with my name, and quite likely it is me, or I will be using my official email. So some of those things will help. But Camille, why in this time you really don't know, because even people's certificates, them bringing bogus come giving as well.
Yes. Yes.
So I think they can't pretend for too long, so you'll eventually find out that something is not right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
All right. Any other thing that you thought would be helpful outside of those two suggestions?
No,
No?
I don't know. I mean, I know that this reference is the reference check is crucial, but to me, I think it should only come in writing. It should not be just that we request the name and the number.
Then can write it. I'll give
No,
bogus
but I
in
mean,
there.
like it
But
would be, well, I
like
guess
I
this is
said,
Jamaica, so
like I said, you'd want it from the person, at least one from the last and a previous employer. In which case, it should give you on a letterhead.
on the letterhead, exactly.
Although the people in Bogus same way.
That
Right?
is true. That is true.
But then you can really double check. Because even, for instance, if people go for a loan in the bank and they get